These circumstances surrounding this young woman's death leads them to believe it is suspicious. Homicide detectives are now on their way. I can tell you that this woman was found, who's aged in her 30s, was found unresponsive about 3 o'clock this morning.
In an inner-city park, thousands gathered to light the way home for women in honour of a young comedian who didn't make it there.
Her death sparked an outpouring of emotion, anger, grief and vigils protesting violence against women. The judge describing it as one of the worst examples of murder.
Supreme Court Justice ruled outrageous and depraved conduct like this will be met with severe sentencing in which mercy plays no role. Justice Kay said his crime was an attempt to enact his dark and violent sexual fantasies, culminating with the death of his victim. He placed the offending on the most extreme end of the scale.
Eurydice Jane Dixon, born November 10th, 1995, Melbourne, Australia. Her life wasn't easy from the start. When she was 7 years old, her mother, Karen Walters, a political activist who had battled a 10-year heroin addiction, was found dead at a Brunswick shopping center. Eurydice was 7. Her siblings, Christopher and Polly, were also young. Their father, Jeremy, raised them alone. People who knew her said she didn't talk about it much. She kept her family life and her comedy life very separate. She got bullied growing up, had a tough time. But somewhere in all of that, she found performing. And it became everything. She studied drama at Deakin University, where she appeared in a student theater production of Cozy in 2014. She did theater with the Moreland Theatre Company in Melbourne's northern suburbs, appeared in short play festivals at RMIT, slowly made her way into stand-up.
You know, just girly things. Just no right? We worry. But we shouldn't. We really shouldn't. It's not going to happen for ages. We'll all be dead by then.
In 2018, she made her Melbourne International Comedy Festival debut. Her show was called At Home, I Feel Like a Tourist. Her comedy mentor, Kieran Butler, described her as a strange sort of unit. She got bullied, and she had a tough life. But she was clever, independent, mature beyond her years. She was 22 years old, and she was just getting started. Tuesday, June 12, 2018. Eurydice performs her stand-up set at the Highlander Bar on Lonsdale Street in Melbourne's CBD. The set goes well. She's happy. Afterwards, she leaves with her boyfriend, Tony Magnuson. They grab some food together, then go their separate ways. She was on top of the world because her gig went so well. Tony later told The Age. She gave me a hug, blew me a kiss, and said she was going for a walk. She walks north through Carlton toward Princes Park, a route she had taken many times before. About 4 kilometers to her front door, the house she shared with her dad and her brother. At 12:02 a.m., she texts Tony. I'm almost home safe. HBU? She never makes it home. At 2:40 in the morning, a man walking home from a late shift passes through Princes Park Sports Precinct. He finds a body on one of the football ovals. He calls 000 immediately and starts CPR. Paramedics arrive. They work on her at the scene. It's too late. Eurydice Dixon is declared dead. She is lying on a football oval inside Princes Park, roughly 200 meters from her front door. Homicide squad detectives are called in.
As you'd all be aware, things have developed pretty rapidly over the last 24 hours, and we have a male person in custody at the moment who will appear before the Melbourne Magistrates Court later this morning.
Can you talk us through a little bit about how you tracked down the alleged killer?
Look, obviously I'm very restricted in what I can say there. What I can say is that the involvement of the community was really significant, and likewise the involvement of the media as well. And they played a very significant role in us being able to resolve this matter as swiftly as we have. The male actually handed himself in. The male surrendered himself to a police station last night, which was as a result of the media coverage that we got.
Given the likeness between the face fit from the sex crime squad job and this homicide investigation, do you still say that the two crimes aren't connected?
Look, we've obviously been very mindful of that overnight. At this stage, we're quite confident that the two matters are unrelated. However, we'll still maintain, an open mind in relation to that, and there's still a lot of investigations to go on.
Police secure the entire area. Within hours, investigators are pulling CCTV footage from everywhere. Train stations, street corners, service stations, anything along the route from the city to the park.
There's a deep sense of shock and sadness at what happened here earlier in the week. Behind me, a collection of floral tributes has been growing. Friends have remembered Eurydice Dixon as clever, funny, and beautiful. There's been an outpouring of emotion on social media and criticism of the police advice for people to be mindful of their safety. Some have described that as victim shaming.
What the cameras show changes everything. The footage tells a story. Earlier that same evening, while Eurydice was still performing her set, a 19-year-old named James Todd is captured on camera at Flinders Street Station. Then he appears on the next camera, and the next. He is following her, deliberately. From the city, through Carlton streets, all the way to Prince's Park, for over an hour. Detectives work through the footage frame by frame. They watch him keeping pace behind her, staying back far enough, waiting. Prosecutors would later tell the Supreme Court that in the year before that night, Todd had been entertaining violent sexual fantasies and looking for an opportunity to act on them. On the night of June 12th, he chose Eurydice Dixon. At some point during her walk across the Oval, Eurydice took off her shoes and walked barefoot. She did this sometimes on this stretch of the route. Todd followed her into the darker reaches of the park, away from the lights, away from the path. He attacked her, he raped her, and then he killed her. He then walked away and went home. Later, when he called his father from prison, he reportedly expressed a disappointment in how things had turned out, and expressed the hope that next time would be better. By Wednesday morning, Victoria Police had clear CCTV images of their person of interest. They went public. The footage ran on every news channel in the country. Within hours, James Todd walked into a police station and handed himself in. He was 19. From Broadmeadows, about 18 kilometers north of the city, a hospitality student, no prior convictions. He was charged with rape and murder, refused bail, remanded in custody. His father, Jason Todd, gave a brief public statement. He said he was as appalled as the rest of society and extended condolences to Eurydice's family. He said he hadn't seen his son since her body was found. When investigators looked into Todd's background, they found a troubling picture. He was the middle of 3 boys. The family home was described as severely neglected. Broken kitchen floors, a block toilet, trash and debris in every room. His mother had battled depression. As a child, Todd had been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and had displayed obsessive, repetitive behaviors. In assessment interviews after his arrest, Todd told a psychologist that from the moment he entered the park, he already knew there would be a sexual assault. He had planned it from the beginning. A few days after her death, Eurydice's family spoke through her great-uncle Eric. She was blossoming, he said. You see these things on TV, but all of a sudden it's in your family. The whole stark reality. They remembered her as a born performer. Brave, clever, kind. A GoFundMe set up by fellow comedian Luca Mueller to support the family had a goal of $1,500. It raised over $64,000. On Sunday, June 17th, hundreds came to Prince's Park. Police, chaplains, fellow comedians, strangers. They brought flowers and laid them in a circle on the oval where she was found. Notes were left. One read, "I am so sorry this happened to you. I will never forget your name, Eurydice."
Thousands of people have gathered in Melbourne for a vigil in honour of an inspiring comedian who was raped and murdered last week. Tonight, those who knew her have come together with strangers to pay tribute to the 22-year-old's life and to reclaim the park.
A sea of faces lit by candlelight as raw emotions surfaced. The message has united hundreds who walked along Sturt Street in Ballarat. The sentiments felt by thousands across the nation who stood hand in hand for the woman abused and killed last week.
Not just Melbourne, where people have gathered in solidarity and reflection. This murder's been felt throughout the entire country, with vigils being held in multiple cities.
That morning, before people had even arrived, someone vandalized the memorial. A men's rights activist named Andrew Nolt had crept into the park overnight and drawn a 25-meter graffiti image across the grass near the flowers. Police investigated. Nolt was later found guilty of criminal damage. He was initially given a community corrections order and 200 hours of community service. He was later jailed after breaching that order, failing to complete the service and traveling overseas. Eurydice's father, Jeremy, wrote an affidavit during the proceedings. He said he didn't want Nolch's imprisonment to become part of his daughter's story.
I am very glad there's a killer off the streets. What I'd wish for James Todd, and what I believe Eurydice would wish, is that he gets better and comes to a full realisation, and realises what he's done. I extend my sympathy, my sincere sympathy for those who love him. It's a terrible tragedy all round. Eurydice herself should be remembered, as her friends will remember her, for her wit and her courage, and for her kindness, not for her death.
While in prison, James Todd will undergo behavioural therapy and receive medication for his disorders. He'll spend most of his time behind bars in protective custody because he's at risk from other inmates.
Eliza, the judge said James Todd will struggle behind bars.
That's right, Pete, and James Todd has already had conflict with at least one other prisoner. He has been put in isolation to stop him being targeted.
He wrote, "I want good things to stem from her life." Despite the vandalism, the Monday evening vigil went ahead. More than 10,000 people showed up. They stood in the dark, holding candles, in silence. Local footballers held a minute's silence at the park on the Saturday. The comedy community held tributes at venues across Melbourne.
In Melbourne, they gathered, some 10,000 men, women, children, united in sombre silence. Then in song. The crowds that filled Princes Park to remember Eurydice Dixon, a jarring contrast to its emptiness, the night the 22-year-old was killed there, walking home from her comedy gig.
We invite you to light a candle or use your torch or a phone to light the way. Let's stand together. We'll be in silence for 20 minutes before a choir will close the vigil with a song.
Thursday, June 21st, 8 days after her death. A private funeral was held at a funeral parlor in Brunswick, the same suburb where her mother had died 15 years earlier. Mourners arrived dressed in black, carrying flowers, consoling each other outside. The funeral pamphlet showed two images: a young, smiling girl and a woman on stage in a polka dot dress. Her great-uncle Eric spoke. Her sister Polly spoke. Her drama teacher Tracy Carroll spoke. 5 of her friends spoke. The songs chosen for the service were Pictures of You by The Cure and We'll Meet Again by Johnny Cash. She was buried at Northern Memorial Park in Glenroy, Melbourne. Eurydice's death reached all the way to federal parliament. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull publicly commented on the case.
Our hearts go out to Eurydice's family. Our prayers, our sympathy, our love are with them as they grieve her loss. Women must be safe everywhere, on the street, walking through a park, in their homes, at work. We need to ensure that we have a culture of respect for women. Not all disrespect of women ends up in violence against women, but that's where all violence against women begins. And I know that we are all united in this here. This is not a partisan issue. This is a heartbreaking tragedy. I thank the honourable member for the question, and I believe, Mr. Speaker, that I speak for every honourable member in saying we must never, ever, ever tolerate violence against women. Eurydice Dixon, we mourn her loss, we grieve with her family, and we say never again.
Victoria's Women's Affairs Minister Natalie Hutchins addressed Parliament directly.
The state government is also calling on the community to change attitudes.
It's about showing our grief but also demanding changes in terms of the way women are seen and treated in our community.
She said Australia was enduring a gendered violence crisis. By the time of Eurydice's murder, 30 women had already been killed across the country in 2018 alone. She was denied her right to get home safely. She was denied her right to life, Hutchins told Parliament. Australia's Human Rights Commission noted that 1 in 5 Australian women had experienced sexual violence or threats since the age of 15. The debate that followed about women's safety, public space, and who is responsible for preventing violence didn't go away.
For destroying the life of an innocent woman, James Todd will spend the rest of his days rotting in a jail cell.
The man who raped and murdered Melbourne woman Eurydice Dixon has been sentenced to life in jail. 20-year-old
Todd showed no emotion as the sentence was handed down, life imprisonment with a non-parole period of 35 years.
Despite previously denying any involvement in the murder of Eurydice Dixon, this afternoon 19-year-old James Todd pleaded guilty to 4 charges: murder, rape, attempted rape and sexual assault.
The man who raped and murdered Melbourne woman Eurydice Dixon will return to court for a plea hearing today before he is sentenced.
November 8th, 2018. James Todd appears in court. He pleads guilty to all charges: rape, murder. His defense raises his age and his autism diagnosis. The prosecution's expert, Dr. David Thomas, tells the court Todd poses a significant risk of reoffending, and that Todd himself had admitted knowing from the moment he entered the park what he intended to do. September 2nd, 2019. Supreme Court of Victoria. Justice Stephen Kay faces James Todd, now 20 years old. You waited until Eurydice was well into the dark reaches of Princes Park. He calls the crimes totally and categorically evil. He says they were Todd's attempt to enact his darkest fantasies in a park at the heart of a city of 5 million people. Life in prison. Minimum 35 years before parole eligibility.
This disagrees with the 20-year-old's lawyers that Todd's autism spectrum disorder decreased his culpability, instead ruling the killer's sexual sadism disorder was the dominant factor.
She was vulnerable and in the circumstances defenceless. In a most callous and cowardly manner, you set upon her. The sheer terror which Eurydice must have experienced during those dreadful moments is unimaginable. The offending by you was totally and categorically evil. Your conduct and your intentions and motivation struck at the very heart of the most basic values of a decent, civilised society.
Side to murdered comedian Eurydice Dixon has avoided jail. Andrew Notch was slammed for his lack of remorse by the magistrate after he blamed his actions on man-haters. Dougal Beattie was in court.
Convicted to serve 200 hours community work, the 29-year-old pleaded guilty to painting a vulgar image of male genitalia on the memorial to Eurydice Dixon just days after she was killed in June.
Blatant man-hating upset me so much that I felt I had to make a statement for men's rights.
He told media he wanted to cause maximum outrage, but claimed he meant no offence to the murdered 22-year-old. Andrew Nolch will now have to undergo a men's behaviour change program as part of his rehabilitation and treatment. The magistrate also ordered him to provide a DNA sample because she felt it was in the public interest. He'll now have to repay almost $20,000 for the clean-up bill.
Todd appeals. He argues the sentence is excessive given his guilty plea and his diagnosis. The appeal is denied. The sentence stands.
In breaking news, the killer of Melbourne woman Eurydice Dixon has lost his appeal to reduce his life sentence.
After weighing the relevant sentencing considerations, life imprisonment with a non-parole period of 35 years was within the range of options available to the sentencing judge. We have described the applicant's conduct as unspeakably loathsome and cruel in our written reasons. The sentence of life imprisonment was not disproportionate and was not imposed purely for the purposes of community protection. Given the applicant's limited rehabilitation prospects and the seriousness of the offending, it was open to the sentencing judge to fix a non-parole period of 35 years.
Eurydice Dixon lost her mother at 7, got bullied, had a hard start. She turned it into something: theater, comedy, a career she was just beginning. On the night she died, the last thing she did was text her boyfriend to say she was almost home safe. She was 200 meters from her front door. Her father, Jeremy, said he wanted good things to stem from her life. 10,000 people stood in the darkened Prince's Park holding candles to say her name. That's who she was. That's what happened. That's where we leave it.